Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargava, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about the alleged ragging and subsequent death of a 17-year-old student in Kolkata. We also talk about what the law says about vehicles bearing caste stickers. But first, we talk about Chandrayaan 3. Yesterday at 6:04 in the evening, India made history when the Indian Space Research Organization's Chandrayaan 3 landed on the southern region of the moon. The mission, consisting of a lander named Vikram and a rover named Pragyan, have now made India the first country to reach the southern region of the moon and only the fourth country to have softly landed on the lunar surface.
धीरे धीरे लैंडर की वेगमान को कम किया जा रहा है और हम अब लगभग 50 मीटर से भी कम आ चुके हैं। जी हाँ, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं कि हम लैंडर मॉड्यूल
The moment is a major milestone for India, which has previously sent 2 missions to the moon, including the Chandrayaan 2 mission of 2019, which had crashed on the lunar surface. Immediately after the landing, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the scientists at ISRO, saying that the country is now on the moon and the success belongs to all humanity.
Friends, on this joyous occasion, I would like to address all the people of the world, the people of every country and region. India's successful moon mission is not just India's alone. This success belongs to all of humanity. And
PM Modi, who had been in Johannesburg at the time, also said that the landing on the moon is a historic moment and sounds the bugle for a developed India. After his address, we also heard from P. Veera Muthwal, the project director of Chandrayaan 3.
The entire mission operations, right from launch till landing, happened flawlessly as per the timeline, and we became the fourth country to demonstrate the soft landing onto the moon surface, and we became the first country to go to near to the south pole of the moon.
In this segment, we speak to Indian Express's Amitabh Sinha about the significance of this achievement and how it will benefit India. Amitabh, begin by telling us, what does this moment, this achievement, means for India?
So beyond the fact that we are the fourth country to land on the moon, beyond the fact that we are the first one to land in the polar regions of the moon, beyond the celebrations, beyond this particular event, there are huge amount of ramifications of this Chandrayaan 3 landing moment, not just in space, but also beyond, in realms of wider technology, in realms of, even in terms of bringing more business, investment, and certainly in the diplomatic circles. So, quite surely, this is one of the finest moments for India in the recent history, one of the biggest scientific achievements for India. In recent memory, the one thing that probably this is comparable to is your 1998 nuclear tests. And just like, those nuclear tests, the ramifications of those nuclear tests went far beyond the nuclear sector or the defense sector. In this case also, the implications go much, much beyond the space sector. There are huge amount of tangible benefits that will accrue after this.
Right, and we'll talk about the implications and the tangible benefits that India will get. But just to give our listeners an overview, Chandrayaan 3 took off on the 14th of July. It entered the Earth's orbit and was slingshot into the lunar orbit. And after 40 days, finally made this landing, which one imagines was the most challenging part. The previous chairman of ISRO, Mr. K. Sivan, had even described this phase as the 15 minutes of terror. Talk about what makes a soft landing so challenging.
It's just the uncertainties and the fact that the margin of error is very, very low. And the fact that this descent is completely handled remotely, and there is no way for the ground stations to come in between and control if something goes wrong. Because of which, you design it on the Earth, you test it on the Earth, But out in the space, there are lots of unknown unknowns, as Dr. Sivan himself, told me day before yesterday. Also, the margin of error is very, very low. And that is what makes it. In fact, you brought up Mr. Sivan's name. So I was speaking to him the other day, and he was quite clear that those 15 minutes of terror that he talked about in the context of Chandrayaan 2 actually were very much applicable to Chandrayaan 3 as well. And he said, yes, there have been lots of reinforcements that have been done. Several layers of safeguards have been added to Chandrayaan 3. So all that does reduce or mitigate the risk, but there is never a no-risk situation. You cannot eliminate the risk. So that last part of landing continues to be very risky, not just for Chandrayaan, but for every mission. And we have seen it, with other missions as well. They have found it difficult to navigate as well.
And Amitabh, apart from the landing, of course, the other significant thing is where Chandrayaan 3 has landed, which is the southern region of the moon. And no other country has landed there before. Talk about why this location was chosen.
So there have been more than 20 landings on the moon since the 1960s. Most of the landings, in fact, all the landings till Chandrayaan 3 have happened in what is the equatorial region, near the equator. The simple reason being that the instruments that on board any spacecraft from any country, actually, they're designed to run on solar power. And on the moon, the maximum amount of sunlight is near the equator, as it is on Earth as well. So it's convenient for the operation of the instruments to land near the equator, and that's what all the landings did till now. But the idea is, as you need to map the moon completely, get as much information about the moon as is possible. If that has to be done, you have to move beyond the equator and to see what is where and how does the rest of the moon look like. So that was one motivation. Of course, scientists also believe, and there is evidence that the concentration of water molecules is likely to be much more in the southern, near the poles, than in other parts of the moon. So that is another motivation to go and look for water, not for, looking for life. Water is important from a lot of respects. And the primary being that if you are able to find water there, then water can be split into hydrogen and hydroxyl molecules, and that hydrogen can be a source of energy.
And this energy can then be used for further deep space exploration.
Deep space exploration, also for sustaining permanent stations on moon. So right now, we are looking at moon not just from the point of view of reaching there and making a hue and cry about having reached the moon. Right now, the motivation for going to the moon is very different. The idea is to explore the possibilities of long-term sustenance on the moon, so that, we have, say, scientific, stations set up in Antarctica, for example, or in the Arctic region. So similarly, the idea is, one day and not very far away in the future, actually, to set up permanent stations on the moon wherein astronauts can go regularly. Right now, you have the International Space Station, for example, which is just about 400 kilometers from the Earth's surface. Moon is 400,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface. So if you have a permanent station where astronauts can go regularly, that would mean that there is an ongoing research happening on the moon itself, and there is a continuation of research that goes on moon. And as you mentioned, yes, that's also already being thought about, that once you have established a facility on the moon, then the further possibility is to use moon as a base to go further in deep into the space. So all that is being thought about, being actively worked upon. The current round of moon exploration is all geared towards those objectives. It would take some time. It's not happening in the next 5, maybe not even the next 10 years, but it's all geared towards that objective. And one very important component of that would be, what is the source of energy? Obviously, you cannot carry that energy source, batteries and all sorts of things from here to the moon. It just becomes very expensive. It's just not feasible. So you have to find a source of energy, and that's where water molecules become very, very crucial, very important.
And Amitabh, what happens next? What updates can we expect from Chandrayaan 3 now?
So one of the things right now, we are talking just a couple of hours after the landing has happened. And as of now, the landing has happened and everything has fallen silent. The next big thing is when the rover comes out of the lander. The rover is this instrument that will crawl on the moon's surface for 14 days. It will keep on collecting some data. It will keep sending data back to the ground stations. So that coming out of rover is the next big step. And that rover comes out after a few hours. The main reason being that when the lander actually lands on the moon's surface, it raises a lot of dust. Moon surface is full of this dust, and because there's very little gravity and there is no air there, the dust takes a lot of time to settle down. So that 3 or 4 hours of time is to allow the dust to settle down. Once that happens, then the rover comes out. So, another couple of hours from now, somewhere around midnight, before midnight today, the rover will come out and begin its operation. So that's the next thing to look out for. And by tomorrow or maybe tonight itself, we'll get to see some pictures that ISRO would have released, because both the rover and the lander, they are equipped with cameras. They can photograph each other. The lander can, record the rover moving around, crawling around on the moon surface. So all those photos and probably videos will become available maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight, in a couple of days' time. So that's what is expected to happen.
And Amitabh, in the beginning of this conversation, you had talked about how one aspect of this mission is the space exploration, but that this achievement will also help India in other areas. So talk about what other benefits will this garner the country?
See, there are benefits in space, of course, and there are benefits beyond space. Within space, of course, the fact that, you are just one of the 4 countries to have demonstrated this landing technology, that surely means that you are really at the cutting edge of space technology, because it's not that others have not tried. Others have tried and failed. Lots of others are also trying. That means you are amongst a handful of countries that can participate in planetary exploration, which means you have the influence, you have, the wherewithal to not just influence but also shape policies with respect to space technologies. So that is one. Number 2, there are benefits in technology sector. There are benefits, as I said, in business sector. There are benefits for India in terms of the use in diplomacy, right? Already, our space technologies are one of the most marketable commodities in diplomatic conversations, right? It's a very, very important offering that India often makes in their diplomatic dealings with other countries. Because ISRO can provide space services in a very cost-effective manner, in a very, very efficient manner, it's something that is very sought after, especially amongst the developing countries. That kind of capability does not exist, and they seek out ISRO's help for a lot of things, right? So this kind of landing adds to the marketability of ISRO for these kind of things. Then there's this other, not that ISRO is not already credible, but because of this landing, it adds to its credibility. What that also does is, for young professionals who are working in the space sector or who want to work in the technology sector, it makes India just a little bit more attractive than earlier. For example, if an aerospace engineer, for example, wanting to work on space, has an attractive option back at home rather than going to the United States or Europe to work on space projects.
So it helps India retain talent.
It helps India retain talent. It helps India attract talent, not just from within the country, but also from other countries. It becomes an attractive destination to go and do technology. And, I have been speaking to some of these former ISRO scientists, also speaking to these space entrepreneurs themselves. And they are thrilled. And some of them say, it helps us get talent. It shows us in very good light, because a lot of these space companies are actually working on ISRO. So if ISRO works well, if ISRO does well, it rubs onto them as well. So, and one former scientist said, it's already started to happen that your brightest minds, which were getting attracted to IT, are now, you see a shift happening that a lot of them want to work in the space sector. So that shift has already started happening. So lots of things beyond just this single event that has happened today.
And next we talk about the alleged ragging and the death of a 17-year-old student in Kolkata. Earlier this month, a first-year student was found dead within the hostel premises of the Jadavpur University. And while his parents alleged that he fell victim to ragging, the hostel authorities and fellow students initially contended that he had taken his own life. Nonetheless, the incident triggered widespread outrage in Bengal. Various student organizations held protests in front of the university campus and demanded justice for the deceased minor. And consequently, the police even apprehended 13 individuals in connection with the case. Now, this incident has raised several questions about the prevalence of ragging and the hostel culture at the Jadavpur University and other colleges in Bengal. To know more about the case, my colleague Utsa Sarmin speaks to Indian Express's Sweety Kumari in this segment.
Sweety, can you first tell us what had happened on the night when a young student's body was found in the Jadavpur University hostel premises?
Yeah, so on August 9, as you all have already said, a 17-year-old first-year student of Bangla Honours of Jadavpur University died after falling from the balcony of second floor of the main hostel. And according to, if we go by police version, he allegedly fell from a hostel building at around 11:45 at night. That was, the intervening night of Wednesday and Thursday. And he was taken to the nearby KPC Medical College, which also falls under Jadavpur area only. Like it is around a few minutes drive. And he was taken to the medical college. And at around 4:30 a.m., which is V hours, he was declared dead by the doctors.
And there are some competing claims of what actually led to his death, right? His parents are saying he was ragged, and the hostel authority initially said that he committed suicide. So what led the parents to believe that he was a victim of ragging?
So Utsa, we went to Nadia district where he stays, where his family stays. And I was speaking to his mother. And she told me that this guy, we are not naming him because he's still minor. And this guy had called his mother on the night of the incident. And he had said that he was very scared. And he wanted to share something. She had this intuition that he was not well, and he wanted to say something to his mother, and that is why she said that it is definitely not suicide or something. The ragging was the thing that she's claiming, that this guy was tortured mentally. Also, his mother told us that this boy would never change his dress in front of anyone. But on that day, he was found with just a piece of gamcha, I would say, and it was he was almost bare body. There was just a gamcha on his lower part of the body. So that is why his mother is saying that he was tortured. And also there is one point, he had a different kind of hairstyle, and his mother said that he was forced to cut it into a military shape hairstyle. So these are the things that is making the family believe that he was ragged.
And we understand that there were other discrepancies, like the parents were not informed by the authorities immediately after finding the body. And in fact, authorities also took some time to reach the hostel, right?
So yeah, there was loopholes at different levels by the authorities, because what information we have, according to that, some of the students had called dean of student of the hostel about informing him about the incident, but he in return had allegedly only called the hostel super and had asked him that something has happened, you can check. But according to JU, other students in different department sources, we have come to know that there was no immediate intervention by authority. Nobody physically went to check what had happened. And it was all left on the seniors and the former student or those who stay in the hostel to handle the situation. which was very weird. And in fact, police were also informed by one of the students of the hostel or university, and the registrar of Jadavpur University was on leave. So there are excuses. There have been a lot of questions raised on the authority, and what they all have replied is, yeah, in fact, the current VC has also accepted that there was loopholes on the part of the authorities, and there should have been a prompt action. And also, when we talk about their accountability, nobody from the authority immediately spoke to the parents or informed them. It was all done by the students. And not only that, there was no authority present when the police tried to enter the university premises.
Right, and speaking about the police, the students also tried to stop them from entering the hostel that night. Why was that the case?
So, there's a rule that police cannot enter a university premises. That we know, that unless there's a permission from the VC, you cannot enter inside the university premises. But this was definitely an incident, which is, police is law enforcement agency. Police is someone that handles the law and order situation. Somebody has fallen off or whatever. We don't know whether it was accidental or murder. But somebody is dying and you're not allowing police to enter the university premises itself very fishy. And police has a recorded statement, and police has investigated, interrogated a lot of people, like more than 20 to 25 people have already been interrogated by police. And some of the caretakers and the watchmen informed police only that it was the hostelers, that hostel boarders, who had told them that please do not allow police to enter the hostel premises. So also the hostel boarders did not, he was taken not in an ambulance, rather in a yellow taxi. So some students went outside the hostel, called a yellow taxi. They took this guy, this injured boy, critically injured boy, in this yellow taxi to the hospital while police was there, and they were trying to, they tried their best to intervene, but no, they were not allowed to enter the place of occurrence. The police, in fact, followed the yellow taxi to the hospital, and it is being claimed that even in the hospital, some former students stopped the police from, checking on the guy or what had happened, because of which police has also taken action on a specific student.
And despite all of this, a police case was registered. Could you talk about what kind of actions the police have taken so far?
So police, usually when there is any such incident where somebody is falling off a height and there's a death case, so police usually take an unnatural death case, but here they filed a murder case. Also, they have booked the accused under section 34 of IPC, which means that an action being done with common intention. Also, police so far had been only charging the accused or investigating the case under murder section. There was no ragging section added up to the case. But yesterday they moved to court. They approached court. They submitted a prayer in the Alipur court to add West Bengal Ragging Act in the case. That clearly shows that police have strong evidence that this guy was ragged, and it's a ragging case.
And could you tell us about the steps the university authorities have taken to address this issue?
So what they have done is, a temporary VC has been appointed by governor, and after he took the charge, he has called anti-ragging meeting twice, and they were likely to submit a report to UGC, which already they have done once, and UGC was not satisfied with that, so they are preparing for another report. Secondly, first year, as per UGC guideline, first year hostel freshers, anybody who joins a university as fresher should be kept in a separate hostel, separate building, which was not followed by the Jadavpur University authority that we have seen. So after the incident, the first year student, the freshers, have been shifted to a new building where there will only be freshers living as per the UGC guideline. These are the steps that authorities have taken, but it is already too late.
Right, and can you tell us what kinds of concerns this case raised? What does it tell us about the hostel culture in Bengal?
So basically, ragging is there in the culture, I would say. Ragging is, to my understanding, ragging is what? It is basically an expression of power. Whether we deny it or we accept it, But we all know that it is open secret that ragging exists. It is everywhere. And we are focusing on Jadavpur University because a boy has died. मतलब अगर ऐसा नहीं होता, if there was no death, it would have continued for decades. I mean, it took a life to awaken the authorities. So ragging is there. Now, if ragging takes a shape of an incident like what we saw in JU, it is definitely concerning. Now, I think nobody dares to challenge it or change it even after going through it. Like, even students don't want to challenge it or, dare to change it, because at times the focus of these students are different. They just want to concentrate on study. They stay in the hostel and mummy papa ka itna paisa kharch hua hai. They have their who wants to get into all this. They might require help of seniors in due course of their studies. So these things happen, but nobody take action. Now it also depends on how strict your anti-ragging cell. एक body तो आपने बना दी है. Everybody is saying that we have anti-ragging cell. But only the formation of anti-ragging cell is not going to help. Na? Ultimately, we have to see how active your anti-ragging cell is. So, Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee yesterday launched a toll-free anti-ragging phone number where you can just call and register your problem or grievances. So, I think this will help because we know that ragging exists everywhere. So, this incident has definitely, created a concern.
And finally, we talk about what the law says about vehicles bearing caste stickers. Now, it is quite common for us in a lot of parts of the country to find cars and motorcycles with stickers that proclaim a certain caste, like Jat, Brahmin, Yadav, Thakur, or Gujar. But what many perhaps don't know is that this practice of displaying one's caste or religion on vehicles is technically considered a criminal offense. And to crack down on this practice, the Uttar Pradesh police launched a special drive on the 11th of August. When we spoke to Indian Express's Nirbhay Thakur, he told us more about it.
While initially the drive went on for 10 days, the police official said that it's a government order and now challans will go on for a longer period of time. So basically, the Gautam Budh Nagar and Ghaziabad police, during this 10-day period, they issued like 2,300 challans to people who were putting caste and religious stickers on their cars. The Noida police is not so far behind. They issued 750 challans during the same period.
Nirbhay says that the police are likely to initiate more drives like these in the future as well. In fact, UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath had recently told officials during a review meeting that this practice needs to be banned, and had directed officials to take strict action against people displaying these stickers. And Nirbhay also points out that UP isn't actually the first state to take this step.
It's not just the UP police, and it's not like very new. Other states have also done this before. The Rajasthan government did this back in 2019. There were various newspaper reports talking about this. So UP is not the only state doing it, but on such a grand magnitude, I think UP is probably the first state to do this.
According to him, there are multiple laws that prohibit the use of caste and religious stickers on vehicles.
There is various legislation available. We looked at two laws in particular, two acts. So one is the Motor Vehicle Act and one is the Motor Vehicles Rule. And both of them started in 1988-89. But the Motor Vehicles Act was amended in 2019. And both of these have prohibited putting caste and religious stickers on your car. So the first legislation that we looked at is the Motor Vehicle Rules. And according to Section 50 of the Motor Vehicle Rules, stickers and adhesive labels in registration number plates were not permitted. There are other acts too, like if you look at the Motor Vehicles Act, if the number plate is not as per the rules specified, then Section 192 of the Motor Vehicles Act penalizes the act. It's basically a provision of fine up to 5,000 for the first offense, and for subsequent offenses, the fine can go up to 10,000, and there can also be an imprisonment of 1 year. And in the case of stickers on the body of the vehicles, the police are issuing challans under Section 179 of the Motor Vehicles Act of 1988. The section basically has provisions for fines in case there is disobedience of orders, obstruction, and refusal of information. And now, after the amendment of the Act, of the Motor Vehicle Act in 2019, earlier the penalties used to be up to 500. If the penalties for the offence are not provided in the Act, they used to be up to 500 rupees. But after the 2019 amendment, the fines now stand at 2,000 rupees. The challan for putting a sticker on the car is 1,000 rupees. But if you put it on the registration number plate, it's 5,000 rupees. So people who have their caste written on the number plate, they'll have to pay 5,000 rupees for the first offence. But if the sticker is just on the car, they'll have to pay 1,000 rupees.
Now, while some point out that such stickers on vehicles are indicative of the deep-rooted caste problem in the country, Nirbhay says that many who use them see them as a trend and nothing more.
They talked to people who faced these challans, and they were like, they had mixed reactions about it. Many of them said, Ki, we started this as a trend and everybody's doing it, so we're doing it. Something like that. And some people were annoyed at the challans. They were just like, we're doing nothing wrong. We're just letting people know that this is our caste, and it helps because people of the same caste, they'll help us out if we're in trouble in case something happens.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Abhishek Kumar and was written and produced by Utsa Sarmin, me Shashank Bhargava, and Rahel Philipose, who originally spoke to Nirbhay Thakur for the last segment. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.